Hi everybody, this is Heather from Live Well, just with a little update. As many of you are aware, we've been going to several educational events as usual at this time of year and learning lots and getting lots of tips and tricks. So the most recent one we went to, Rose and I went to Sydney to Biomedica's Metabolic Health Summit, and I was honoured enough to be a speaker at that event. So I was in some very good company. What I shared was lots of case studies of weight loss successes that we have at Live Well and how we achieve that, and how we have lots and lots of different ways we go about it. It's not a one size fits all. How some people will use the metabolic balance program standalone. Other people, we might use the metabolic balance program and some injectables that they've been prescribed by their doctor, and why we would use some of those in some people. Other people, it may be just some dietary advice and some supplementation if they're trying to get their HbA1c down or stop the creep of increasing pharmaceuticals. So I shared some case studies of all the different ways that we do that, and lots of tips and tricks of why we think we've got a very high success rate with weight loss and all the advantages that has to your metabolic health. So it's not just about what you look like or what size jeans you're wearing, it's about your metabolic health. But just to give you a bit of an overview of the summit and the things that we learnt and the takeaways that were for me anyway. So the keynote speaker was Charlie Teo. So Dr. Charlie Teo, controversial figure, had been a lot of media presence over the years. So he gave really a presentation about resilience and reinvention, and that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So he just shared his journey over the last decade or so and what he's doing now. So that was pretty inspirational and quite interesting to get one side of the story. So that was great. Then there was a presenter named Wendy Burke who's done a lot of work with the microbiome, and we all know that's about the bugs that live in our gut. But what hers was about was what effect do GLP-1s have on the microbiome. So we often automatically assume that if it's a pharmaceutical, it must be negative. But GLP-1 medications are actually peptides, and what was surprising and also reassuring is that the weight loss injectables actually improve microbiome. So go figure, because people are actually eating less, but their butyrate's increasing, their diversity of their microbiome's increasing, and their inflammation's decreasing. So the improving gut flora aids the reduction in inflammation in the body, and that reduction in inflammation on GLP-1s is more than people taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So for most of us, the story just keeps on getting better and better around these new medications. So that was really good to hear. The presenter that for me was the most engaging, I guess the most takeaways from, was a functional or integrative cardiologist from Sydney named Jason Kaplan. And his was really about lifestyle and how you can improve cardiovascular health. So he acknowledged and shared some research that cardiovascular disease really starts quite early. It starts in our late teens, early 20s. So we mightn't get the problems with our heart till we're in our late 50s, 60s or 70s, but this damage gets done early. And if we can pick up those people who are getting cardiovascular plaque and do something about it earlier, there is some evidence that you can reverse early plaque burden. So that's always good to know, and that's the way we're going in preventative medicine and functional medicine. We want to preserve good health rather than fix bad health. So he also acknowledged that lifestyle can reduce risk factor by 50%. So we can all blame our genes and say, well, I've got lots of cardiovascular disease in my family, as I do, but we can make changes in our lifestyle that can reduce the risk of that being us becoming part of that statistic by 50%. Now, there will be no surprise to anyone listening to this what those things are, and you could probably reel them off yourself, but nutrition has a huge impact, exercise has a massive impact, quality of sleep has a massive impact, stress and reducing stress affects your cardiovascular health, smoking, really big gun, and alcohol. So we all know these things, but there's these big long-term studies coming out that just keep on reinforcing that. So if you have those genes or you have that family history and you want to be in that 50% that doesn't develop cardiovascular disease or reduce that risk factor, then you need to be doing some preventative medicine. So you need to come in and see someone like myself or Rose or Sandy, and let's do a bit of a workup and see what we're actually dealing with. Now, he had some great studies on omega-3, and they do actually reduce 25% reduction in cardiovascular events. So that was reassuring, because that's one of our mainstays in natural medicine for cardiovascular health. And what was really nice for me is he definitely supported using ApoB testing for a measure of whether your bad cholesterol is actually causing a problem in your body. And I do order this test quite a lot, and I find it a really good measure as well. So that was good to see the stats and the research behind that. And he also gave some other really handy markers for testing, like things to look for in standardized testing. And coronary calcium score, which you know I'm also a fan of, his advice and the research advice is that a baseline coronary calcium score should be at around 45 years of age for men and around 55 years of age for women. And that's giving you that score over the next 10 years, how likely you are to have a coronary event. And he then gave some really, really good slides about where that score becomes relevant and where the intervention should happen. And one that I found very fascinating was, if your coronary calcium score is above 400, that is the same as if you've already had an event or a stent. So, you know, we do have to take these scores seriously and act appropriately. So we all want to have that lower score, obviously. And the other marker that is often done in people's blood work, but not often associated with the heart so much, is our CRP, or serum reactive protein. And we're aiming for everyone to have one of those under 2. And that is quite common to see people coming in with CRPs that are quite high. So that was really good. He acknowledged that, again, plaque regression is possible if intervention is done early. We also had a presenter talk about a new natural medicine metabolic support product, which we will feature in our newsletter. And this has got some really key ingredients, but the statistic that jumped off the page for me about this one was that it increases your natural production of GLP-1 by up to 22%. So we've already had some feedback on this. There's already been some people on it and come back and said, oh, you know, my appetite is definitely suppressed and I'm finding this really good. But the product doesn't just have that in it. It's got lots of digestive bitters, and it's got metabolism support, and it's got glucose moderators. So it's got a whole heap of things in something that you take twice a day. So it's always great to have another tool in our toolbox for metabolic health. So I hope that has been helpful for you. We are really here to help. Metabolic health is the primary driver of chronic disease. So it's not just a simple, oh yeah, that's not me. It's about everyone. And another thing that Jason Kaplan said, which was really interesting, is that he had been to a lecture the week before, and the presenter had presented some research around blood pressure. Now, when I was nursing, 40 years ago, we would only alert that a blood pressure was elevated if it was over 140 on 100. Then, years later, that came back to sort of 130 on 90 was high blood pressure. But the research that he was just exposed to was indicating that for prevention of dementia, we need to be striving for blood pressures around 120 on 80. So there's just more and more coming out all the time. And in this space, it's like helping you achieve that optimization now, rather than waiting till the disease has taken hold, or there's been a tragic event or something that's really out of your control. So reach out to us. We've got lots of tips and tricks, and we'd be happy to help. Thank you.